Welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from now 8:30 a.m. till 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments of the live feed. If you need any more early in the mornings advice, then join the official Intuitive QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage with it, and I'll reveal the answer of the poll at the end of today's broadcast. If you're on TikTok, check out Be Your Own Boss competition, hashtag Be Your Own Boss. Pitch a new business idea and you could win investment, mentorship, business advice to make your business a reality. Don't forget, hashtag Be Your Own Boss. Go check it out. So my name is Simon Squibb, and I am a serial entrepreneur, I guess is the best way to describe me. I've started 19 companies. I'm presently running my 19th business. I've invested in 69 startups, and I love taking companies from zero and turning them into heroes. I have personally been involved in raising money, in investing in not only my own businesses, but other people's, and helping people understand how to take that small business and make it the business of their dreams, the big business perhaps they want. But I've also helped people understand what their destination is. My experience is really in marketing and building businesses. I run today a project called the Purposeful Project. We have a mission to help 10 million people start a business and never feel alone doing it. And you can check us out on thepurposefulproject.com. So today I want to share with you what I think is the secret to it all. And it's a big statement, but I really think this is the absolute key to ensuring that we make it in business. In my view, without this mindset I'm going to share with you today, you won't make it. And so, and this is the insight. So the secret to it all, I discovered when about, I guess, 12 years ago, I started looking at investing in companies. And I wanted to, before I put my hard-earned money, having built my small business into a large business, before I put that hard-earned money into other people's companies, I wanted to understand what it is that made the companies that succeeded succeed. What was it? Now, I'd been through the experience of building my own businesses, but you know, wood for the trees. It's quite hard often to understand why I made it. I sometimes attribute my own success to luck. And that's a previous broadcast I did with Intuitive QuickBooks. But today I wanted to share another revelation, another insight I had when I researched all the people that were successful in business. And so, of course, I went and researched the obvious names like Bill Gates, and, you know, fascinating backstory to Bill Gates. Of course, we all know that he went to Harvard and that he's, of course, a success. But when I was researching him, what was interesting, when Bill Gates dropped out of Harvard, what I noted was all the records at Harvard got deleted that he was ever there. It was never in Harvard's interest at the time for anyone to leave their institution. So the fact that Bill Gates left was not seen as a positive thing, and they deleted all of his records. And of course, later, when he becomes successful, they give him a degree. He didn't even have to go to school to get it. They gave him an honorary degree, and they put his name up on the wall as someone that, you know, attended the school and so on. But what I took from the notes of that time for Bill Gates was all of his friends and family, all of his peer group, when he said, "I'm leaving Harvard to go and start this weird software company," everybody told him, "You're mad, finish Harvard. What are you doing? Finish Harvard." Everybody in his whole circle said that to him. If you finish Harvard, you're set for life. That was the belief. But of course, we all know that he didn't, and he went off and did Microsoft. And I think you could argue today he's probably set for life. I mean, I know it's slightly controversial at the moment in his life, but the point is, you know, back then he was told that if you just finish Harvard, this risky startup thing, you know, it failed or it didn't matter, he'd have that certificate. But he didn't take that safe route, and he dropped out of Harvard and went and built a company. And so the lesson I took from him and many, many others was this concept that actually you have to take a risk. And when I researched Elon Musk, for example, another, of course, well-known entrepreneur, a similar story. he was told when he made all his money from PayPal, he made $110 million US from PayPal. He was told by everybody, you know, take this money and buy property, have the income from the property, and you'll never need to work again. Now, we all know that's not what he did, right? He took that money and he put it into SpaceX and Tesla. He was famously interviewed saying that he's putting all of his money into these two companies, and he was sleeping on a friend's sofa because he didn't have any money. And this is after making 110 million from PayPal. And as you start looking at all of these successful people, time and time again, the same answer comes out. If you want to be successful, the secret to it all is you've got to be willing to risk it all. And as you start analyzing really successful companies, again, let's pick Google, for example, they have a similar issue where, and there's something called innovator's dilemma, where certain companies that are doing really well get stuck because they're doing really well and they don't innovate, right? It's called innovator's dilemma. Christian Christensen, it's a great insight, great book that he's written, quite the visionary. But the whole insight in that book and from my own research was that all of these companies like Google, for example, they are permanently asking themselves, how can they disrupt themselves? How can they reinvent themselves? How can they eat their own lunch? You know, so Apple, for example, were famous for like creating the iPod. So when they brought out the iPhone, there was a lot of discussion, why include the iPod product in the iPhone? That actually reduces the sales of iPod. Sony, on the other hand, split everything up. They would never cannibalize their Walkman player by putting it in a phone, right? So keeping it separate was the good strategy to increase sales. But it turns out that if you keep hold of what you've got as a company, as a person, it's like trapping the canary in a cage. It actually means the bird sings less happy. You can do less exciting things in the world because you're not free. And basically, the secret to it all, without doubt, is this concept that you've got to absolutely not hold on to what you've already got. And so the ones that have failed, like Yellow Pages, you guys might not even know Yellow Pages today, but they were the king at one point. They could have been YouTube or Google. They could have been this search function, but they held so tightly on to their old format of a printed book. They thought that that was their economic moat. One of the other famous ones that held on and of course therefore died was Kodak. Kodak actually invented the digital camera. They created the digital camera, but they were so scared of what it represented and how it would disrupt film that they buried it. And what was really interesting when I studied the whole Kodak story was that they were making the most amount of money just before they died. Literally, everyone else was turning to digital, and so their film in business they were still growing. And then suddenly, when everyone basically made the switch, boom, business was over. So it's something to keep in mind. As a person, if you're starting a business, if you're growing a business today, then you've got to keep risking it all and not hold on too tightly to what you've already got. In addition, I really believe you've got to, with all your might, try to find a way to not accumulate and hold. And that will stop you enjoying life. That will stop you growing your business. And I know it for a fact, having gone through it myself on a personal level. I guess you could say bad luck or good luck, depending on how you look at it. When I was younger, at 15 years old, I had a very sad thing happen in my life, and suddenly I was homeless. And at 15 years old, being homeless, you kind of have nothing to lose. So I started a business, and everyone told me, on the streets that it wasn't going to work, and they were wrong. It worked. I became quite successful. My last company, Fluid, I sold to PwC, the accounts company. You know, I did quite well. And I think, you know, basically, I think I was lucky because I had nothing, and therefore was able to start with nothing, and therefore could take risk. And I think ultimately, I just want everyone listening perhaps to take this learning that, you know, you don't have to have it happen to you but like I did, to learn what I'm learning here. You can look at history. History will always tell you the future. And so hopefully by looking at the case studies of successful people, like I've just mentioned, you know, companies like Apple and Google or Elon Musk or Bill Gates, it's all there. It's obvious how they made it. They made it because they were willing to risk it all, plus luck. So I hope you found that insight useful. Now I'm going to answer your questions that are coming in. So Tom on Twitter, you have asked, hey Simon, saw the Be Your Own Boss campaign on TikTok. Great to hear. What a fantastic opportunity. It's all about pitching at this point. What are your pro tips to make a successful pitch? Well, I've seen thousands and thousands of pitches in my time. And I always say to people, there is no perfect pitch. There's only the perfect energy. And so if you really want to make a pitch, partly, in my view, it's about bringing your personality to the table. Be authentic, be yourself. Tell us why you're doing this, that emotional connection. You know, I'm doing what I'm doing today because I'm really going back to that 15-year-old me and helping that person. You know, that person who didn't have any help, didn't have any money to pay for help. That's why I help pay people for free today. You know, and I think that personal story in a pitch, it resonates with people. And if it doesn't resonate with the person you're pitching to, frankly, you probably don't want them involved in your business anyway. So I always tell people when they're pitching to do that. Now, there are many, many decks out there that tell you how to do the perfect pitch. But I always tell people, you know, there is no perfect pitch. That emotion is key. And Tom, I hope to see your pitch. I'll be looking out for it. So yeah, and I know it's you because you'll do this emotion thing that I just did, hopefully. But thanks for the question, Tom. Tracy on Instagram. Hey, Tracy. When you're starting out a business, you often get a lot of feedback, but you don't know what's useful and what you should ignore. Do you have any tips on how to receive feedback and implement learnings from it? So, yeah, well, it's very tricky, isn't it, when you get a lot of feedback? And I've also had this problem. I think my 5th company, I decided it would be really, really good idea to have a load of board members. And they were all awesome people, in case they're listening, but there were also conflicting opinions and ideas on what the business should do. And that caused some real problems for me and for the business, for that matter. And basically the long and short of it is, I think you need to be very clear on your own vision. What is your reason for being here? So again, I use myself as my own experience, and I think that's all you can ever do with giving advice, is leverage your own experience. But I always feel like my business, for example, what I'm doing today, I would always help entrepreneurs for free. No one will ever be able to convince me otherwise. I will never charge people. And so I have had people come in and give me advice that I should be charging people. I just ignore their advice. I mean, I understand their sentiment and what they're saying, but I absolutely disagree. That belief I will not change. But then someone said to me the other day, "Hey Simon, you should perhaps try Snapchat." Now I'm a big fan of TikTok and this social media. So I'm resistant. I'm like, I like my community on TikTok. I like the people I'm helping there. So I don't really want to change, but I do listen, and then they educate me about how this platform works, and I learn. So I think that you've got to pick and choose the advice, I guess, is the ultimate goal. You've got to know what your core is, what you absolutely will not change, because that's your core belief, your core moral code. And then I think the taking advice and learning from people and being open-minded is important, but making sure at the same time you hold your vision. Both on a personal level and on a company level. So, Georgie on Twitter, you talk about taking risks. Can you tell us a time when you did this with your business, and what did you learn from it? Oh, I love risk. Without risk, you don't get lucky. Luck is key to success, but you need to take a lot of risk. The risk you take, the luckier you get. And I've risked so many times. I think everything I've ever done is kind of a risk. One of the biggest risks I guess I took is at 23 years old. I was reading about how Hong Kong was being handed over to the Chinese by the British, and it was kind of a once in a lifetime experience to see a country in peace times being handed back to another country. And Hong Kong's a very profitable country. I was kind of fascinated that you'd hand this incredibly profitable business, a country, back to China, and it was all done on an agreement 100 years ago, and so they honoured the agreement. It wasn't legally binding. It fascinated me, the honour of it, you know, the honour of the British government, I guess, or British people, to hand back a place that had been built up into this successful financial hub. Anyway, long story short, because I could go on about Hong Kong forever because it's a beautiful place, is I decided I was going to move there. I was living in England and I just decided to move there. And I had a friend who was living there, and I said, can I come and sleep on your couch and come and experience the country? And he said, yes. Best thing I ever did. I was so scared because I knew one person there, but he was always traveling. I didn't know the place. I remember when I was leaving, someone telling me this kind of horror story about the crime there and how I might get caught up in it and how horrible it could all be, and overcoming fear. In fact, learning to love fear, learning that fear is actually what makes you feel alive, leaning into fear. That experience taught me that, you know, there was so much fear around moving to another country. And when I got there, it was so exciting. It was so much fun. I learned so much about other people's cultures. I realized that the media had accidentally brainwashed me into thinking the world was a certain way. And it's not, you know, and by traveling, I opened up my mind. And I think that was the single biggest risk I took, that opened up my mind and gave me the life I love today. So hopefully, Tracy, I've answered your question there. Oh, sorry, Georgie, sorry. Zayad on Facebook, you have left me a question. The fact you came from nothing, made something of yourself, are now helping others is amazing. I appreciate you saying that. Thank you. Not everyone can become millionaires, though. That was the key moment in your journey that pushed you to that next level. You know, I think the money piece is a distraction, really. I know people want to hear that you've made money, and I often on TikTok I often joke I'm a multimillionaire. I go on there almost like a character joke. I'm a multimillionaire. I am a multimillionaire, but I think I'm only there because I never cared about money. Now I know when you've got money, people think, oh, it's all right for you to say that you've got money, but I think I've got money because I actually never cared about it, and I've continued to take risks without money being my primary goal. Like I was saying earlier, I'm willing to risk it all. So I feel like that the money piece, if you chase money, it doesn't come your way. And so I always tell people you're successful, in my view, if you are doing what you love every day. And of course, if you can pay your bills, then great. But sometimes people increase their life costs because they don't enjoy what they do every day. And they end up having more debts. They're trying to buy things to fulfill them instead of, you know, I would say you can't buy love. You can only feel it. So basically, you know, with money, I believe for me, the tipping point was really that homelessness feeling. What was weird about having nothing is it wasn't as bad as I thought. You know, the concept, it wasn't as bad as you thought. There was still a community within that world, and there was kindness. You know, people helped me. I saw things about people in the world that I think only having nothing can give you. And so I learned, you know, as I built out my career and I started to have money, that it was never the money that made me happy. You're only happy, you know, money, if you're unhappy, money makes it worse. And I know plenty of people that were unhappy, made money, and, you know, they got serious problems. But I know people that are happy that got money. Yes, it can help. But if you're happy to begin with, money only makes you happy if you're already happy. So I hope that insight's useful to you, Zayed. Susan, you've asked me a question. What are the key qualities needed to be really effective business leader in your opinion? It's a good question. There's lots of different types of leaders. So I guess it's always a tricky one to answer. Again, I've only drawn my own experiences. I love, you know, there's this thing that Simon Sinek said recently. He's a great speaker. He said something that I've been saying for a long time that I really believe in, but I'll give him credit because he's the public. He's very well known. He said this recently. So, and he talked about something I know to be true, which is, you know, leaders talk last, right? And basically, if you walk into a meeting, for example, and you say, hi, this is what we're doing, and then all of you do it, and then you leave, you lose, I think, as a leader. I think the best way is to walk in that room and say, put out there what we're talking about as an agenda item, and then everybody in the room talk first. and don't let anyone shut anyone else down. And that means that you just gained a load of knowledge that perhaps you wouldn't have otherwise had. And then you can still, if you went in there with a certain opinion and you've heard everybody and you still have that opinion, then great, you can then state it and that's fine. But I absolutely know with all my heart that if you listen to people, like I had an intern come and join my organization recently, and it's easy initially to say, it's just an intern, what does he know, right? And he came along to record a podcast with us. And then I asked him, I had an opinion about the podcast. I asked him his opinion. He said something I didn't even think of, and it's completely changed our business. Ryan, if you're listening, thumbs up to you. It blows my mind. You can't make judgments on who knows better than you, and leaders that know that, in my view, succeed. Marsha has left a question here, so let me read it out. I've sought business advice from various places, accountants, solicitors, other business leaders, but it can get costly. How do you prioritize your business needs so that you can find the right support? Marsha, this is such a good question. It is quite hard to answer. I always believe in the value of free. I believe that people that really know things are willing to give that knowledge for free, because if they know things, they've often become aware, and to become aware of the value of free is incredibly powerful. So, having a mentor, for example, don't pay a mentor. That's the wrong sort of mentor. Having someone that you can trust and rely on, who has the same moral code as you. I mean, I seek out people that I know, by the way they talk and the way they explain things, that I can work with them, I can learn from them. Maybe I can even, at this stage of my life, bring some value to them as well. But I surround myself with those types of people. I think building that base, I mentioned earlier an advisory board almost in a negative way, but it can be a very positive thing, having a group of people that can help you, that aren't just doing it because they're charging you. It's like, to me, it's like, okay, oh, you're 10 minutes up, I can't give you any more advice. You don't want that in your life too much. So instead of seeking out business advice from people that you have to pay, build friendships with people you respect that will give and take, right? I love give without take. This is my personal philosophy. But people do need to earn a living, so that, when it comes to professional services, I think, you have to, I love having the help of a good accounts company or system. That's why I'm working with QuickBooks. I think they do an amazing job. And I think that's really important to pay for that service. But I think when it comes to lots of other things, you mentioned business leaders in your questions, I would say good business leaders will be there to help you. But maybe the key is you've got to have a very purposeful business so they want to help you, or a very purposeful mission on a personal level so they want to help you. If you just all about making money, and this goes back to my point about money, if you're just about making money, then they're going to be just about making money. So they're going to charge you. Whereas if you're not about just making money, then you're going to think a little bit differently, and they're going to think a little bit differently about you when they're giving advice. So I hope that's useful. John on Twitter, you've got a question for me, so I'll read it out. Are there any examples of businesses that took risk but it didn't pay off? How can you make a calculation or educated risk? So this is a really interesting one. I'll tell you a quick story. I invested in a comic book business called Devashard. I put £1 million into this business. I got investors, lots of people involved, and it was an amazing concept. It's basically, imagine if Spider-Man or Batman. Imagine if Batman was born in China, or Superman landed in Russia, not America. What would happen? And I love this whole concept. And then we kind of came up with our first story, which is about Karna, based on something called the Mahabharata. Anyway, long story short, I invested heavily in this business, and it was meant to get made into a movie. And I got a meeting, this is maybe 8 years ago, with Harvey Weinstein, and it was meant to be made into the movie. Anyway, long story short, the deal fell apart, the company imploded, it all went horribly wrong. And I lost the money, the business didn't work. I still got the comic book, which I love, but the whole business didn't work. And you could call it a horrible ending. that it didn't work. But I have to tell you, I'm so glad today. I'm not in business with Harvey Weinstein, of course, and I'm not, so ultimately for me, I like it sometimes when things fail, and it seems like fate. And that's sometimes how I calculate risk. I let fate play its part. And as far as educating yourself on risk, I think you can never be sure that things were going to work. But if you do something you love, it doesn't matter. I'm still proud of the comic book. I'm proud that I did it. I hold that product in my hand sometimes and I reminisce about the process, working with all the creatives and learning. So it doesn't really matter to me that it failed. And I think that's how you mitigate the risk. Enjoy the journey, right? Enjoy the journey. If you enjoy the journey, the fact that business makes money or doesn't make money, it doesn't matter. Jamie Oliver started a restaurant chain. We all know it failed probably here, right? He opened up something called 13, which is a restaurant that used to help underprivileged kids, those coming out of a juvenile, and gave them a chance by giving them a job in the restaurant business. He helped hundreds of children, kids, young adults. He helped hundreds and hundreds of people. And they have better lives because he created that restaurant. Now, the fact that restaurant's now gone bankrupt and financially it didn't work, you can never take that away from him. You can never take it away from the people that he helped. And so to me, it's not, the risk isn't just make money or lose money. The risk is you don't do something purposeful. So, but that's how I mitigate risk. What's the worst? I lose some money. Okay. But I calculate it that way. Pete on Instagram has a question. It's been a mad year and a half. Loads of companies have been through hard times due to the pandemic. It's too early, sorry. What would you say are the biggest lessons businesses can learn from it all? Yeah, it's been a tough year for us all. And, I don't know if this is too controversial, but there is a part of me, Brexit was a thing that tore us all apart, right? It made us, in England, we all were arguing really with each other over Brexit, who in or out and all that. In a way, COVID has brought us together, right? We've all been through this experience. And I think to me, that really makes a huge difference. And I think remembering that we are in it together is actually really key to being, having empathy, and being kind to each other. And I think that actually, to me, the pandemic has taught me personally how important it is to do something where you're helping other people and giving, not just taking from the system. And doing what you love every day is what I've noticed. A lot of my friends who are in jobs they don't love, they're in that system every day, going to 9 till 5. The pandemic gave them a circuit breaker. The pandemic gave them a chance to rethink that. And I think it's important to rethink that. Don't get caught in the system. Don't get caught in a trap. That's what I tell people all the time. Make sure you're not caught in the matrix, right? If you've not seen the movie, it's a great movie. Don't get caught in a system. Don't get caught in a habit that you are not actually happy in, but you're making the best of. And I think that's what's come from the pandemic. It's given us all a chance to reflect on what's important in life. We appreciate going out and having a drink outside now, which I think we probably took somewhat for granted, right? So things like that, I think have brought us a lot of value. So Daisy, asked me a question on Twitter. How did you get so many well-known business leaders involved in Be Your Own Boss? Well, in a simple way, I have a big purpose, right? I want to help people that can't get a job right now create one for themselves. There's a lot of people out there that are in business jobs they hate, and I want to help them change that narrative. And a lot of people that have been successful, a lot of people on Be Your Own Boss, a lot of people helping me in this amazing campaign to help people start and grow businesses are passionate about that mission too. They have their own businesses, they've been successful, they want to give back, they're time poor. So if I'm willing to organize it all and arrange it all, and they can then contribute with the limited time that they've got, then they're in. And everybody I asked to be involved in the hashtag Be Your Own Boss campaign on TikTok had said yes instantly. And that shows you the power of purpose, right? And if I'd gone to them and said, hey, I'm running this venture to make loads of money, would you like to join me? I would say most of them would have said no, and maybe a few of them would have said yes if you pay me £1 million, because these are very successful entrepreneurs. All these people that are going to mentor you guys in this competition that we're running to find the next great entrepreneur, the money can't buy time with these people. They're not for hire. They don't sell time, they buy time. They don't traditionally sell their time. So the way I got them on board, to answer your question, Daisy, was my purpose was big, and they were aligned with my purpose and wanted to contribute. So hopefully that was useful. And the result of the polls is out. We asked you in the poll today, do you enjoy risk? 0% of you said yes. 100% of you said no. I've never seen that in a poll before. And that tells me one thing, everybody. You have to learn to love risk. Fear and risk are linked, and fear is a good thing. Fear is an asset given to us, not a thing to avoid. Fear was originally designed, a lion's coming towards us, we feel fear, it gives us superpowers. We can go do anything if we've got the feeling of fear. We think faster, we move faster, we do more. So learn to enjoy fear. 100% of you need to learn to enjoy fear. Lean in. If you learn to love fear, you'll learn to enjoy risk. If you enjoy risk, you'll be more lucky. More luck equals more success. So thank you all for tuning in this morning. If you want to get in touch with me, you can through my website, simonsquibb.com. You can also check out my podcast where I interview the world's most successful entrepreneurs on the purposefulproject.com. And don't forget to enter the Be Your Own Boss competition on TikTok. You can go check out the hashtag Be Your Own Boss on TikTok and read all the instructions on how to enter. We're giving away £5,000 in cash, mentorship from the world's most successful entrepreneurs, marketing exposure from TikTok, myself, support from QuickBooks, all of this amazing stuff. Coming up on Ask the Expert tomorrow is Eva Mazzi-Korva, a licensed accountant with 15 years experience. I'll be tuning in. I always need a good accountant myself, so I'll be tuning in to listen to Eva and learn how to maximize our financial worries and minimize, I should say, our financial worries. And a reminder that if you need any more advice, don't hesitate to please join the official Intuitive QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. I'm there. Some amazing accountants are there and other business experts on hand 24/7 to give you the help you need. Again, don't forget, enter the Be Your Own Boss competition. I really enjoyed answering all your questions this morning. Have a great day, everybody.